No Rest for the Wicked by Crossroads Wright. The first time it happens, it's almost 3 a.m, and a group of them is last-minute studying in the common room. Well, maybe studying is a strong word, since Sero and Denki have been playing a game of paper football for the past 15 minutes, and Kirishima is laying face down on the floor and keeps groaning pitifully about math. Mina and Jiro are painting each other's nails, and Uraraka fell asleep on the couch after their study snacks were gone. The only one still studying is Midoriya, who keeps mumbling feverishly under his breath. They've gotten so used to it, it barely registers to them anymore. Denki's pretty sure that out of all of them, Midoriya is the one running on the least hours of sleep. The dark circles under his eyes are deep enough to rival Aizawa's. It's frankly kinda concerning. "Hey, Midoriya," Kirishima calls, lifting his face off the floor. "Is pain management part of your quirk?" Midoriya looks over at him, blinking several times, as if he needs time to let his eyes focus. "I don't think so." "Huh. Then how come your pain tolerance is so high, dude?" "Oh, that," Midoriya says. "I regularly got the shit beaten out of me since I was like 5. Kaminari is so startled by that instead of flicking the paper ball at Sero, he flicks the table and hisses, putting his finger into his mouth. He stares at Midoriya. Everyone has stopped to stare at Midoriya. Midoriya in turn just blinks uncomprehendedly at them. "What?" "Dude!" Denki says, with feeling, because that's kind of fucked up on several levels, and also not something you just blurt out to a room of people at 3 a.m. Kirishima has sat up and is looking at Midoriya with his kicked puppy face. "Are you okay?" Midoriya's eyebrows knit in confusion. "Yeah? Weren't you and Bakugo childhood best friends?" Mina asks. "Yeah?" Midoriya repeats, still sounding confused. "Didn't he do anything to stop you getting beat up on?" Midoriya stares at her for a second, mouth dropping open a little bit. And then he starts laughing so hard he hits the floor, tears beading at the corner of his eyes. It's kind of terrifying, actually. It sounds kind of hysterical, and Denki isn't super close with Midoriya, but he's getting really worried for his mental stability. Midoriya laughs so hard, and for so long, that he wakes Uraraka up, and his face gets splotchy red as he gasps for air. "Oh man!" he giggles, getting himself off the floor and wiping at his eyes. "Nice one, Ashido." They all still just stare at him, until he seems to catch up to the atmosphere, and shrinks on himself a little. He gets up from the floor and starts patting his way to the kitchen. "I'm getting some more snacks. Does anyone want anything?" "I want iced tea," Uraraka pipes out promptly. "And some of those cookies Sato baked." Midoriya seems to relax, and smiles a little. "All right, be right back." Denki waits until he's out of hearing shot to repeat, "Dude!" with as much feeling as he can put into a single word. "What's up with Midoriya?" Sero asks, blinking after him. "I'm pretty sure he didn't sleep last night," Uraraka says, eyebrows furrowing in worry. The next day, Midoriya goes around nervously telling them that he's really fine and he was just too tired yesterday. Denki grins at him. "Don't worry about it. But listen, if you need anything, just let me know, okay?" Midoriya blinks at him in surprise and nods carefully. And that's that on that. The second time it happens, they're all exhausted again, poring over books. Hanta is actually trying to get some studying done, while Mina and Kaminari are goofing off at the side. It's late into the night, and there's a big group of them spread out across the living room, because studying with company is always better than studying alone. Aside from Hanta, Mina, and Kaminari, There's Kirishima having a semi-private tutoring session to the side with Bakugo. Hunter has been ignoring the sounds of cursing and a rolled-up wad of spreadsheets smacking into hardened skin for the past 2 hours now. Midoriya is poring over his notes next to Mina and Kaminari, and Uraraka is pressed up against Tsuyu, listening intently to her explain something. Well, Hunter isn't sure if she's actually paying attention, or just wants an excuse to sit closer to Tsuyu. Either way, it's kinda cute and also none of his business. Sato has been stress baking in the kitchen for the past 30 minutes, and something smells absolutely delicious. Shinso has been staring blankly at a spot on the ceiling for the past 10 minutes, and Hunter doesn't know if he's having an existential crisis, or if he actually fell asleep with his eyes open. No one disturbs him either way, just in case it's the second option. Studying in groups helps him stay awake. It's too easy for him to fall asleep on his books otherwise, and sharing his misery with other people always makes him feel better, even if it's a Harlequin effort to annoy Kaminari's attempts at distracting him. Hunter has managed so far, which is why he's not listening to the conversation Mina and Kaminari are having, and also why he drops his pen in shock when Midoriya, out of nowhere, turns to them and says, "Do you want a prolapsed ass? Because that's how you get a prolapsed ass." The room wasn't exactly loud. It's very late, and no one wants for Ida to come and lecture them about proper sleeping schedules and REM cycles, but it gets even quieter when Midoriya speaks. Midoriya doesn't seem to notice. He just keeps staring at Kaminari and Mina. "I'm just saying, spit is not lube. And no, getting your dick sucked beforehand does not loosen you up enough for it to work." He shrugs a shoulder and keeps tapping his pencil on his notebook distractedly. Hunter doesn't know what's more jarring, hearing Midoriya say, "getting your dick sucked," or the fact that he's talking like someone who has extensive knowledge on the matter. The other day, Mina said anal in front of Midoriya and then apologized to him, because Midoriya has a baby face and an innocent aura about him. You know, when he's not smiling maniacally as he's punching people through walls. "And for the love of everything that is holy, do not try and choke someone by pressing down on their windpipe. Do you know how dangerous that is? You press down on the sides of the neck, like this," he says, and takes 2 of his scarred fingers, puts them to his own throat, and presses down for 2 seconds. "Also, I don't know what choking has to do with physics, but please get back to work. We have a test tomorrow afternoon, and if you flunk, Aizawa is going to make you take the remedial lessons again." "Dude," Kaminari breathes out, looking red in the face. "Holy shit, Midoriya is a gangster." Mina laughs. "It's always the quiet ones," Shinso says solemnly, grinning over at Midoriya, and gets an eraser thrown at his face for his efforts. "Shut," Midoriya says, pointing a finger at him. "I've had unrestricted internet access since age 7, and you expect me not to know how to erotically choke someone properly? Unrealistic." He clicks his tongue for emphasis. Hunter loses his shit, along with several people in the room. "Deku-kun, how long have you been awake for?" Uraraka asks. Her face is bright red, and he doesn't know if she's flustered or if it's from containing her laughter. Probably both. "I don't know, like 32 hours? "You are gonna regret this so hard tomorrow," Shinso says, sounding delighted, because everyone in this class is a sadist. "Not as hard as Denki is right now." Mina snickers, and promptly gets shoved over by Kaminari. The only reason she doesn't sprawl on the floor is that Midoriya catches her. "Shut up!" Kaminari whines, as Mina is thrown into a fit of giggles. Something slaps on the table hard enough to rattle it, startling all of them. They look over at the source, and no one is surprised to see it was Bakugo. "The next person to say anything even remotely sex-related is getting a personal ass-kicking by me, so shut the fuck up! Some people are actually trying to pass this stupid test." Hunter knows that when Bakugo says some people, he means Kirishima and not himself, which is sort of sweet, he guesses. He's pretty sure Bakugo already knows all the material front to back, and back to front, like the little overachiever he is. "Kachan is right. We shouldn't be talking about this," Midoriya says, and resolutely turns back to his notes. It's kind of hard to focus after all of that, but if there's anything Bakugo is good at, it's wrangling people into doing what he wants under threats of violence. They study for a couple more hours before they call it a night, everyone dragging themselves back to their room. Hunter hangs back because he dropped a pencil on the couch 15 minutes ago and still hasn't managed to get it out. Midoriya hangs back because he forgot how hand-to-eye coordination works, and it took him several tries to put his writing materials away. Kirishima hangs back because... "Do you think you can teach me that?" Kirishima asks. "Thermodynamics?" Midoriya asks, confused. "That's not going to be on the test just for hero research." "No, I meant choking." Hunter appropriately chokes on his own spit. There's a beat of silence. "Ask me again when I can't taste colors," Midoriya says. "Cool," Kirishima says, happily. "Good night, bro. Sleep well." "Yeah," Midoriya says, sounding dazed. "This is gonna suck tomorrow." There's another beat of silence before... "Do you need any help?" "Ugh," Hunter says intelligently. "Pencil rolled onto the couch. Can't get it." "I'll lift it for you," Midoriya says, and true to his words, he lifts it, the four legs of the sofa coming straight into the air and hovering a couple generous centimeters off the ground. Hunter retrieves his pencil, and Midoriya puts the couch back down. "Thanks," he says. "No problem," Midoriya says, with one of his dimpled smiles. "Good night." "Good night," Hunter says, and watches him gather his things and leave. He smacks his shoulder against the door jamb, and seems to barely register the hit. Hunter comes to the sudden realization he just let a severely sleep-deprived person hold a whole-ass couch over his head. Thankfully, he's too tired to fully grasp his own mortality. Midoriya can't look at any of them in the eye for the next 2 weeks, and every time he does, he turns bright red and speed walks away, which is kind of hilarious. It probably doesn't help that everyone who was there has taken to making thinly veiled sexual innuendo around him. Or that, at some point, Kirishima gives Midoriya 2 thumbs up and a wide grin, which Hunter doesn't know what it's about, but from the way Midoriya immediately turns to Shinso and implores, "Please brainwash away my mistakes," it's not hard to guess. The third time, it's not ridiculously late at night. It's 9 in the morning on a Saturday, and Momo was pretty sure Midoriya hasn't slept for the past 3 days. He tried to sit on a chair earlier and missed the seat. Then he had just laid down on the floor staring at the ceiling, until Momo had coaxed him up and into a couch. She's been trying to gently open him up to the idea of rest, but Midoriya is stubbornly refusing. So, she did the only thing she could do. Call in the heavy hitters. Which in this case means Todoroki, since most of Midoriya's other close friends went out for the day to visit their family, or in Shinso's case, are passed out asleep, and number 1 rules of the dorms, since Shinso moved in, is, you do not wake him up. Not only because he gets worryingly little sleep, but because Midoriya will hunt you down for sport if you do. Todoroki had brought with him one of the fluffiest blankets Momo had ever seen, and had tucked it around Midoriya's shoulders, before he had disappeared into the kitchen to make some tea. When he came back, he slipped the mug into Midoriya's hand, curling his fingers around Midoriya's to make sure he had a good grip on it. Midoriya looks up at him with glittering eyes. "I'll destroy a man for you," he says breathlessly. Todoroki looks vaguely amused. "Good to know." Midoriya passes the mug to Momo's hands, and then reaches up to put his hands on Todoroki's cheeks, so he can bring him down to eye level. "No, listen. I will destroy a man for you." Todoroki blinks at him, looking a little startled. "I have a 7-year plan," Midoriya elaborates, terrifyingly. "Okay," Todoroki says, through his smushed cheeks. "Fuck endeavor," Midoriya says emphatically, and then kisses Todoroki on the forehead before letting go of him and reaching for his mug. Todoroki casually catches on fire, covering half of his face with a hand as he blushes. The smoke alarm starts going off, and Momo wonders why her class tries her like this. Do you really have a 7-year plan to destroy my father's life? Momo overhears Todoroki ask Midoriya the next day. Midoriya stutters a bit and looks bashful as he says, yeah? That's hot, Todoroki says, with absolutely no inflection. Midoriya makes a noise like a boiling kettle. Momo pinches her nose and wonders what's wrong with these boys. She also wonders if Midoriya needs an extra set of hands carrying out a 7-year plan, because even if she has her reservations about how he does things, one thing she can agree with. Fuck Endeavor. By this point, they all know that letting Deku stay up for over 24 hours is a terrible decision, but there's not really much they can do about it aside from force-feeding him sleeping pills, which Ida strongly put a stop to, so they suffer. Or, well, Deku suffers. And Tsuchako suffers too, when Kaminari walks into the kitchen, zeroes in on how tired Deku is, and immediately asks, "Hey, Midoriya, any tips on giving blowjobs?" Sero immediately elbows him in the gut, which Tsuchako is grateful for, because she doesn't feel like getting up to do it herself. Deku lifts his head from the table to squint blearily at him. No. Oh, dude, really? Not that tired yet, he bumbles. Boo, Kaminari says good-naturedly, pulling out the chair across from Deku to sit. Tsuchako glares at him. I thought you'd say something about managing your gag reflex or something. I don't know anything about that, Deku says, voice muffled from where he has his head laying on his arms. Kachan killed mine when we were 12. Kaminari, who was about to sit on the chair, misses it and ends up on the floor. Tsuchako chokes on her own spit. Deku looks up at the noise and frowns at them. What's wrong with you? He says, just as Tsuchako screeches, 12? Deku looks at her like she's being weird. Yeah, he pushed me down the stairs while I was eating a lollipop, and I almost choked to death on it. He what? It's fine, he got it unstuck before I could really die. I see, Tsuchako said calmly, pulling her phone out of her pocket and dialing Bakugo's number. It rings 3 times before he answers. What? Meet me in front of the dorms for an ass-kicking, she yells into the receiver. Can we do that after lunch? I'm busy right now. Sure, does 3 work for you? Sure, that works. Cool, see you then. He hangs up in her face, like he always does. Hey, Uraraka, has anyone ever told you you're terrifying? Kaminari asks, getting himself up from the floor and sitting down. Yeah, she says cheerfully, and holds eye contact until he looks away. Deku has fallen asleep on top of his arms. Tsuchako counts this as a win. At 3 p.m. on the dot, Bakugo walks out of the dorms, looking around. 30 seconds later, Tsuchako jumps straight out of the second-story window at him, screaming the whole way down. It's 4 a.m. on a Sunday. Final exams start tomorrow, and everyone is dead on their feet. Ejiro is only awake because he wanted to get some water from the kitchen. Bakugo has been studying pretty much non-stop, and he's pretty sure so is Midoriya, which means when he walks past the living room, he knows the two of them must be incredibly sleep-deprived. He stops and stares at the scene the two of them make, sitting cross-legged facing each other. Midoriya has his hand in front of Bakugo's face, fingers pointed at him. Dum dum dum, he mutters, pointing his hand up and down 3 times, before he points it away from Bakugo's face to the left, just as Bakugo turns his head to the right. Dum dum dum, he mutters again, tonelessly, and points his fingers to the left again. Bakugo also turns his head to the left. "Fuck!" he says, and lifts up his arm. Midoriya grabs his wrist and slaps 2 fingers over his pulse, hard enough that Ejiro winces at the sound of skin slapping on skin. And then, he watches in wonder, as Bakugo puts his hand in front of Midoriya's face and says, "Dum, dum, dum," before snapping it to the left. Midoriya turns his head to the right and grins when he looks back at Bakugo. "Dum, dum, dum," Bakugo repeats, and turns his hand to the right. Midoriya also turns his head to the right and huffs. "Ah!" Bakugo says gleefully, as Midoriya offers up his wrist, and much like Midoriya had done, Bakugo slaps 2 fingers over his pulse point. Hard. Midoriya starts it up again, and Ejiro doesn't know what pocket dimension he's entered, but neither of them seem to have noticed him. So he just gets his water and goes back to sleep. "Midoriya!" Mina calls, as Midoriya shuffles his way through the common room. One look at his face immediately tells her that whatever he's been doing for the past day and a half, it wasn't sleeping. She grins. This is gonna be perfect. "Kirishima doesn't believe me when I tell him he's hot. Tell him, Midoriya." Midoriya doesn't even hesitate. He just looks Kirishima straight in the eye and says, "Were I not in committed relationships, I would let you take me up against the wall in a manly fashion." There's a beat of silence before Kirishima sniffles and wipes at his eyes. "That's so sweet, Midoriya. Thanks." "Anytime," Midoriya says, and continues shuffling his way out of the living room. Mina slaps Kirishima on the shoulder. "See? I told you!" Hitoshi has slept for 9 hours straight, and he feels so well rested, he's a little high with it. He feels like he could fight God and win, or at the very least, finish that hellish essay Aizawa assigned them. He walks into the common room and is immediately met with a whole scene developing. Midoriya has somehow procured a whiteboard and keeps slapping it and mumbling feverishly. This wouldn't be that alarming, except for the fact that said whiteboard is littered with pictures of everyone in the class and scribbled all over. Midoriya keeps slapping the board repeatedly, while looking wide-eyed at his captive audience, who consists of Kaminari, Ashido, Sero, and Jiro. They all look mildly terrified. "What's going on?" Ashido asked Midoriya who the hottest person in class was, and I think he's having a mental breakdown over it. Jiro supplies helpfully. Midoriya looks beyond manic. "It was funny at first, but now I'm scared," Ashido says, staring wide-eyed at the board. "We can't get him to stop." Hitoshi stares at Midoriya again, and decides enough is enough. "Okay, bedtime," he says, and rounds the couch, taking the pen from his hand and putting it down. "No! I need to find out the answer! It's gonna plague me forever if I don't! I'm so close!" "No, you're done," Hitoshi says, and tries to tug him away. When that doesn't work, he tries to pick him up. "Why are you so fucking heavy?" "Ashido says it's because I'm made of 100% homegrown Japanese beef." Hitoshi looks over at Ashido. She shrugs. "Am I wrong, though?" He can't really argue with that. "Just 5 more minutes," Midoriya begs. "If you don't go lay down right now, I'm calling All Might," he threatens. Midoriya gasps and narrows his eyes. "You wouldn't dare!" "He'll give you his disappointed look," Hitoshi says, and Midoriya starts looking scared for his life. "Don't test me. You know I'll do it." "Snitch." Midoriya pouts, but starts dragging his feet out of the common room, throwing a last look over his shoulder and pointing at everyone sitting on the couch. "This isn't over!" Hitoshi gently herds him out of the room to make sure he actually gets to bed, and then for good measure, lays down next to him and throws an arm and leg over him to keep him in place. Midoriya is still muttering under his breath, so Hidoshi does what he always does when Midoriya can't sleep. Pets his hand gently through his hair, and hums a faint melody that he's known since forever. Midoriya is usually easy to put to sleep when he's this tired, and after a little while, his muttering stops, and his breathing becomes steady and even. Hitoshi decides to stay with him for a while longer for fear of waking him up if he gets up. He doesn't really think he can go to sleep again, but Midoriya is warm and he's feeling lethargic. He falls into that halfway state between sleeping and awake. Neither of them get up for a while.